What do you know about the Dyatlov Pass?
9 hikers, tents, they're lost, found dead. That's all I know.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know any. I never heard about it until you told me, honestly.
Are you serious? In early 1959, a search and rescue team would find the bodies of 9 Russian hikers who left their tent during the night without reason in sub-zero temperatures wearing little clothing and footwear. This would spark one of the most famous mysteries that has had people trying to make sense of it for over 50 years and may have even been solved by researchers in 2019.
They're Russian? Did you know them? They are kin,
Oh, God.
family.
In January of 1959, 10 experienced hikers would begin a 2-week hike through the Ural Mountain Range. Early in the hike, Yuri Yudin would be forced to turn back due to illness, a choice that ultimately saved his life. A few days later, in the evening of February 1st, the group would set up their tent on a slightly inclined hill in the middle of the open. At some point in the night, the hikers would cut their way out of the tent from the inside and flee down the slope without taking any clothing that could have saved their lives. A few weeks later, the search and rescue team found the hikers' tent. It had collapsed and had light snow on top. The footprints around the tent suggested that the group left in a panic, but strangely, about 100 meters from the tent, the footprints showed that the hikers started walking in a single file line on their descent to the tree line. The bodies of the 9 hikers would be found in 3 different groups. First, the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonashenko would be found under a cedar tree next to a small fire they had constructed. Both had small cuts and bruises on their bodies, but ultimately died from hypothermia.
And walking a single file line, that
Yeah,
makes sense, especially if it's snowy and dark.
okay. That's
Probably were
true.
holding onto each other's packs as they're walking
They didn't have packs. They weren't wearing. They were. They were.
back,
They were barely wearing any clothes.
hand on shoulder, like back.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I never thought of it that way. That is
Um,
very smart, though.
cut out of the back of their tents. I don't know. They probably heard a bear, maybe. I don't know.
They cut out from the inside of their tent, just from the side.
From the side.
Yeah,
That's really fucking weird.
yeah. A little later, the bodies of Igor Dyatlov, Zeneda Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin were found somewhere in between the cedar tree and the tent. They all had minor cuts and bruises on their bodies, but Zeneda had a bruise on her lumbar region like she was hit with blunt force trauma, and Rustam had a fractured skull. They also all died from hypothermia. 2 months later, when the snow began thawing, the last 4 bodies were found in a small ravine. The ravine is often being mistaken as east of the cedar tree, further from the tent, but it was actually a little northwest of the cedar tree. In the ravine, they found the bodies of Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Brignolas, Ludmila Dubinina, and Simon Zolotorov. These 4 were all dressed better than the others, which indicates that they may have taken clothes from the bodies of their friends who had already died. Strangely, all 4 bodies found in the ravine seemed to have died from some massive impact to the skull or chest. It was later shown that the impact was similar to those sustained in a car accident or explosion. All except Nikolai were missing their eyes, but it should be noted that they were all found under a few feet of snow for more than 2 months, and during the natural decay process, the eyes are one of the first things to decay. But the most strange thing is that Ludmila was missing her tongue, although her body was found with her mouth open, indicating that an animal may have eaten it. Strangely, Ludmila and Alexander's clothes were found to be radioactive, and it was found that radiation was all around Dyatlov Pass. But Alexander was a nuclear physics major at college and possibly already had radiation on his clothes, and Ludmila's coat that had radiation on it was actually Krivonashenko's, who had links to radiation in the past. So with all the deaths established, the question isn't how they died, but what caused them to leave the safety of their tent and all belongings that could have saved their lives. Well, the first things to decay on your body are like soft tissues, like your eyes and your tongue would be one of them. And if her mouth was wide open, and they were like I said, they were found in a ravine, and the ravine had water flowing through it. So I'm just saying that water might have been flowing through her open mouth, and it just like kept it just
Yeah,
was
but wouldn't her
decaying.
gums be all decayed too? Wouldn't her teeth be falling out?
I don't know about the teeth, but you're right about the gums. But they didn't say anything about the gums. I
Also,
saw
like her
the
fingernails.
I saw the reports, but they were in Russian,
Oh,
and I know
you
that.
couldn't Google Translate it.
Oh, you
You
can't
couldn't.
just know that shit. I know the
You don't
jokes,
know
but
your ancestors' language?
no, yeah, I do not know. Theory 1, an avalanche. Some suggest that an avalanche would have caused the group to cut open their tent and hurry out into the freezing night without grabbing their belongings because they wouldn't have time. But this obviously didn't happen. The slope was at a 30-degree incline, which isn't steep enough to pose a major threat, and an avalanche would have completely covered the site and all footprints in a heavy snow. But another part of this theory suggests that the group thought they heard an avalanche and fled, but it's hard to imagine that not one of them would have turned around to see no avalanche, and also they wouldn't have started walking in a straight line.
Yeah. Well, the straight line is weird because it was 100 meters. So footprints were scattered, and then after 100 meters, they got into a straight line.
Yep.
I mean, maybe they did hear an avalanche, they scattered, they got in a straight line, but they're fucking disoriented and just walked the wrong way and got lost. It's super easy to get turned around in the dark, disoriented.
Theory 2, aliens.
Come on. Come on now.
Hear me out. Other locals nearby and members of the Mansi tribe stated that they saw strange flying objects in the sky around the same area at approximately the same dates. At approximately the same dates. Some suggest that the radiation around the site also points to extraterrestrials. There is even a photo taken from Zolotarov's camera that shows what look like bright lights, but realistically this could be anything. In the 1990s, lead investigator of the Dyatlov Pass incident, Lev Ivanov, told a reporter that he was forced by Russian Congress to leave out anything about UFOs and aliens in his report. With that being said, it's hard to imagine that a group of 9 experienced hikers, including Zolotarov, who fought in World War II, would be so terrified by bright lights in the sky that they would run into what they would know would be a guaranteed death.
I mean, if that dude fought in World War II, I doubt he was scared of anything.
Yeah, and there was another member of the group who chased off a bear in the past on a hike of his, so I just doubt they were that.
Yeah, I take back what I said about getting scared and disoriented. The dude is fucking fighting in the jungle for 5 years or some shit.
Not the jungle. Anyways, I sent it to you over Snap.
The fuck is this?
Theory 3, katabatic winds. A katabatic wind is a powerful wind that is carried downslope and quickly gains speed with the help of gravity. They can happen without warning and can drastically change in seconds. If the conditions are right, winds can even be as powerful as those in a hurricane. In 2019, a group led by Richard Holmgreen tried to reenact the voyage of the hikers of Dyatlov Pass. He came to the conclusion that the 9 hikers fell victim to katabatic winds. It's theorized that in the night, sudden powerful winds would have caused the group to flee because they feared their tent would collapse and they would be trapped inside. Once they were outside, they piled some snow on top of it to keep it from flying away. They even threw a flashlight near the tent so that they could find their way back. They made their escape down the slope towards the tree line to avoid the winds. The strength of the winds could have picked up small rocks that were thrown at the hikers, explaining the cuts and bruises. This theory seems to be the most logical and doesn't leave too much to question, but some still wonder why they would even leave their tent and head out into a guaranteed doom without even taking anything that could have saved their lives. Even if the tent had collapsed, all 9 hikers huddling together with their sleeping bags would have provided enough warmth to keep them alive.
Yeah, that one makes the most sense, but I still don't get why you'd cut out of your tent.
Well, you don't want to fumble with... I understand why they would cut their way out of the tent, but I don't understand leaving their tent.
Yeah.
Because this is
like
I said.
That one makes a lot of sense, but...
Logically, it makes a lot of sense, but with reason, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because this is what I believed until I was writing this video.
It's definitely not fucking aliens.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Although we don't know.
Yeah, never say never.
But anyways, yeah, this is what I believed until I was watching a video while I was writing the script. And somebody in the comments said, "Hey, I'm an expert hiker, or not an expert hiker, but I'm a experienced hiker, and I don't think that they would leave their tent because they know that they would freeze to death." And I looked it up, and many other people agree with that. And honestly, that's something that I always question too, but I didn't really think about it. Our fourth and final theory is the military. Some suggest that the group came across something they weren't supposed to and were forced by Russian special forces to leave their tent, walk into the night, and freeze to death. This explains why the group would leave their tent without taking anything with them. Reportedly, during the recovery, Russian military officials were rushing the investigation and didn't seem to care about being thorough. Yuri Yudin would go on to say that he believed his friends were not killed by natural forces, but believes that his friends were coerced into leaving by someone. Yudin also couldn't identify some of the objects that were recovered from the site, including a piece of cloth that may have had military origins. However, there were no footprints found in the snow around the tent, but it should be noted that upon discovery of the tent by the rescue team, they didn't prioritize preserving footprints because they believed they would find the hikers alive. And that's the end of Theory 4, our last
Okay,
theory.
that's the one. I 100% believe that's what happened.
Yeah, I do believe this. I think Yuri Yudin, him being part of the hike, and he definitely was, probably the most informed and knew his friends the best. I think it stands to reason that it would be smart to agree with what he thinks.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.